Got another suggestion for Bo. I think this might be from Wireless Mike. Let me know if I got it wrong in the comments. But it's another Bo of the fifth column. And boy, that or Majority Report, or basically anything by Mehdi Hassan these days. It's like catnip to your old pal, I'll tell you. Let's check it out. Let's have some fun with this one. And even though I've been tossing the what you can do's at you here and there, remember, it is a salty Saturday. We're not here to be productive necessarily. It's mostly to kvetch a little bit. Have a look.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again.
Howdy, Bo.
So, today we are going to talk about supply and drawdowns in Ukraine and how a whole bunch of people are about to be in trouble. If you are in the reserves, if you are National Guard, if you are supply, if you are part of any organization within the U.S. military that has to keep things mission ready, pay attention because heads are about to roll. Okay, so a lot of the equipment that is being sent to Ukraine, it's not being purchased. You know, you hear the dollar amounts and you assume.
Before we find out, I want to take advantage of my ignorance right now. I not even seen the headline for this clip. Well, I'm trying not to look at it right now. I want to point out, if this is going to be about America not being mission ready, I want to point out a big part of the reason Ukraine is doing so. Well, let me take this back. One of the many reasons Ukraine is doing much better than expected in the fight against the Russian invasion is because the Russian military turns out to have been maybe not a paper tiger, more like a cardboard tiger. A lot of their tanks did not have on the sides the plating that prevents shells from killing the tanks. Instead, what they had were like bags stuffed with crumpled up paper. There's supposed to be a little thing that hangs on the side. If a shell strikes it, it detonates, it explodes, but the tank underneath is okay. There was no explosive. Those got sold off. A bunch of the Russian military was run by corrupt officials. When we let our military bloat and rot, this is what happens. When we never question why we're suddenly paying $30,000 for a round of ammunition that used to cost $5,000. When we let only one supplier handle everything. When we constantly greenlight expanding our military instead of, say, after we finish a 20-year war, shrinking the military budget. When we do these things, the result is that we have less military readiness, not more, because we have corruption. It seeps in. You leave all that money on the table and make it clear that we refuse to account for it. You have corruption. That's what happened to Russia. And I'm curious to see if we're going to find out that's what happened to the United States as well. Somewhere there was a Russian oligarch who got pitched out a window, who for the last 30 years, since the end of the Cold War, has been living fat and happy selling ammunition and selling military stuff that he said was there. So I'm curious, do we have the same thing in the United States of America, and have we discovered it at an inopportune moment?
That they're calling up a production company and getting them to make new stuff. That's not actually happening. A lot of the stuff is taking place through what's called a drawdown, which is where existing U.S. military material is being shipped over. The United States has stuff all over the world, pre-positioned in case it ever needs to be used. This stuff is supposed to be maintained to be mission ready at all times. So the U.S. doesn't have to fly in a bunch of equipment, they just have to fly in the troops. The vehicles are already there. Okay, so equipment from the pre-positioned stock in Kuwait was headed to Ukraine. 100% of the M777s were not mission ready. All of them. Some of them had improperly aligned breech blocks. Danger to the operator. These are howitzers.
Yeah.
Of the Humvees.
That is like the one artillery term I know. And the only reason I know it is from a horror story I heard. Jesus Christ.
3 out of 29 were mission ready. My understanding is that a contracting company was supposed to be doing the maintenance on this. And the regular Army supply group that was supposed to be watching them were obviously not keeping up with the accountability on it.
Almost as though, and I'm going to leave a tired, disappointed looking Bo up there because we all deserve it. It's almost as though we have allowed the military and the military industrial complex, which means our actual military and the people we do to do our fighting for us, like we're frickin' Carthage, to get a blank check for 30 years of nonsense. And what did it result in? Glad I did that earlier part. What did it result in? A lack of military readiness. We thought we had things that we didn't have. We thought we were a big, tough fella, and it turns out we're not so big, we're not so tough. Better that we find out now while we're trying to help our allies, rather than as we were trying to fight for ourselves directly. Better for us, I guess. Certainly not better for the Ukrainians, and I should say better for our health, not better for our reputation. This will hurt us in negotiations with other countries. Now, they're going to be... I was against, and I remain against, the idea that we force people to play ball with us by being scary. And I'm against it and remain against it on principle. Because that's not a way we conduct ourselves, I think. That's not a way civilized people go about their business. But also, if you take morality out of it, I'm against it in terms of strategy. Because the downside to that is you got to stay tough at all times. You got to stay fearsome. And it relies on you being perceived as such. We will now, rightly, be perceived as just a little bit less fearsome. So now, on top of finding out that we've got a weakness in our military we didn't know about, we're also going to have to deal with the reality of whether or not this will make the people that were pretending to be our friends, the people who didn't like us, but were too afraid of us to say so, we got to wonder what they're going to do now.
The short version here is that all over the world, if you are in the military, if you are part of a company that provides maintenance, be ready for the world to fall in on you. Because after this, rest assured, everything is going to be checked all over the place. A 100% failure rate is just... that is just that should be out of the realm of possibility. A lot of the fluids in them hadn't been replaced or changed. It was old. In some cases, it appeared to be reused. It was just all bad. So this is going to lead to two things in the short term. One, some of the equipment headed to Ukraine is going to be at least somewhat delayed. Most of this stuff doesn't take long to fix. And given the route it's taking to get to Ukraine, it's going to go through places where the parts needed are just going to be like hanging out. So they will probably be checked on the way. Like once they get to Europe, they'll be checked and fixed and head in. And then obviously the other thing is that all pre-positioned stocks are probably going to have to be examined and inspected, particularly if they are under the current care of a contracting company. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.
There's the costs I talked about. And then there's what happens tomorrow. I guess what's happening right now. Right now, about 15,000 people who do actual work for a living for the United States military in some capacity, either because they are contractors or because they are soldiers. It's an arbitrary number. I'm just trying to guess how many people are in the motor pools that are currently active. I would assume it'd be about 15,000 people are currently receiving an email from their direct superior saying, you're working this Sunday. A lot of barbecues being canceled. No, this is not the worst stuff. I'm just saying these are ultimately employees. Corruption looks like this. Somebody, this situation we've seen, this is what corruption looks like. Somebody decided, I'm going to make a little more money for myself. I'm going to reuse the chemicals in these cars and sell off the excess. Or I'm simply going to pocket the money that I was given to purchase the chemicals that needed to go into the cars, and instead of buying the chemicals, I'm going to reuse the old chemicals. Because the United States has so much military hardware that they do not need. They'll never notice. That's the calculation somebody made. Somebody decided that the howitzers we use don't need all their parts. We don't need that many functioning howitzers. And because we don't need them, we'll never notice that this person stole from us the money that was meant to maintain those howitzers, and so on and so forth. At your job, most likely something similar has happened. Because look, as a result, what's being asked? Who in the immediate, maybe down the line, someone's going to go to prison for this, sure. But right now, who's being asked to make up for that loss of labor, that loss of productivity? Money was taken out of the system in a corrupt manner. Who's being asked to make up for that productivity? The workers. The every single vehicle will need to be checked now. Every single piece of artillery we have, and we have a hell of a lot of it. It's going to have to start right now. They're going to have to triage this. They're going to have to start with the stuff we've already promised to folks. We need to make sure it's really there. The folks that build this stuff, they're going to have to come in and build the stuff to replace it, and quick. Because literally lives depend now on those things being there, on these people getting that extra work done. They have created more labor, more tasks that need to be done to match the status quo, to match the promises we've made already. It doesn't have to involve bombs and bullets, folks. This happens in software companies. This happens at sandwich shops. This happens at I don't know what an investment firm does, but it happens there. This happens at news stations. This happens at contracting companies. This happens in law firms. This happens everywhere that we do not regulate the powerful. A wealthy person decides they can get away. Just a powerful person. A person in a position where they are not subject to authority will eventually decide that they can get away with taking more than they earned. And when that goes wrong, when SVB Bank, I guess it's Silicon Valley Bank, so when SVB goes under, the productivity that you and I produce has to go to them to save them. Do I suggest that we not have these people go in and check all the equipment and make sure we can fulfill our obligations? No. No, we have to do that now. However, just like I suggested earlier that we make the inevitable bailouts for the offices that are going to need bailouts because they weren't really needed after all. We make those conditional. We make this conditional as well. Yes, we will allow the U.S. government, you and me, will give our permission to have those soldiers who ultimately do work for us. We'll give our permission for them to go work all weekend. We'll say goodbye to our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers, our sons and daughters. We'll say goodbye. Miss them at the barbecue. Send them a text, a picture with the family all together saying, missing you. But let's make sure somebody goes to prison for this. And let's make sure that we have stronger regulations in place. And in every opportunity you get, make sure that you are reminding people that a runaway military budget hurts military readiness. It does not help it. It makes us weak because it makes us inevitably think we're stronger than we are, and then we write checks with our big, dumb mouths that we cannot cash. Take it from someone who's had plenty of checks bounce. You don't want that. Let's see what the Wicked community has to say.